Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Riftforce and the expansion Riftforce Beyond. I'm going to do both games together in one video just because there's not a lot of complexity to what's in each one. It's a deck of cards. And the expansion just adds more to the game. So it just makes sense to do them as one full thing, because if you buy one, I would recommend just buying the other one right away if you can find them. We'll go through it. So, what is Rift Force? It's a control, kind of a control point taking game. So it has a big story in it. But basically, the idea is you're controlling various different elemental forces, or some things like that. And you are trying to score 12 points before 12 Rift Force points before your opponent does. And you do this by playing elementals at certain spots on this board that you'll have, and activating their abilities, and then you hopefully defeat your opponents. And then you gain points for that. You gain points for controlling different areas on the board. There's a whole story to it. I'm not too worried about that. But what it does is you have different guilds of all these different elements. So there in the back of the box, you can see this. There are 10 different guilds, and these are 210 combinations. The expansion adds an additional 8, as well as it adds some additional modes, including multiplayer, if you want to play more than 2 players, and solo mode. So we have these different spots on the board which you're trying to take control of. You're going to play elementals stacked on top of each other to do damage and do different abilities. Each player gets to control 4 different guild masters, or 4 different elements. So I have 4, your opponent has 4. And so you have different abilities that are going to trigger at different times and how you activate them. And again, it's very simple. The 3 actions you get to play during the game. Play a new element with the same number or the same guild. So either I can play, and there's only 5, 6s, and 7s. So either I can play 3 5s of any color, or element, or 3 6s or 3 7s, or I could pick all ice and I could play 3 ice of any number, or 3 fire of any number. So this, or you can choose to discard a matching card to form a powerful combo attack with your elements. So after you've played a couple, you can instead get rid of a card to do up to 3, or to do 3 different combos. Or your third can is choose the right time to draw and gain Rift Forces each controlled location. So every time you have a controlled location, which is nobody on the other side like these 2 guys have here, if you activate that, you get a point for every single spot you control. So right now, if either team did that, they only gain 1 point, so it makes sense to kind of wait till maybe you can defeat some of your opponent's things. But if you have nothing else to really do, you might hold off on that. Very simple. So we're going to kind of look through the rule book here quick, and then we'll kind of look at some of the cards. So we're going to get 10 different guilds. Fire, Earth, Light, Plant, Water, Ice, Crystal, Thunderbolt, and Air, and Shadow. Your elemental sides and summoners will have different backs. Each one has a back. They have 5 locations, 2 score trackers, overview cards, plus a bunch of tokens. Game setup is pretty easy to understand. So the goal of the game is to get more points to your opponent by the end of the game. So each Rift Force guild will have 9 cards and 1 summoner. Upper corner tells you each numbers. There will be 4 elements of the number 5, 3 of 6, and 2 of 7. All elements of the guild have the same ability, which is described on their summoner. And opponent's elements refer to as enemies and your own as allies. So how to set this up? Very simple. You shuffle the 10 summoners together, remove 1 of them. So you only have 9 left. Then each one randomly draws 1. So you have 1 guy you don't know who you're getting, but your opponent doesn't immediately know who you're getting, because there's also been 1 guy removed from the game. And then you'll display the remaining 7, and then flip the Rift Force marker, which is just the 1 player. So we have our counters here. We have a blue and a yellow for keeping track, and we have a 1 blue, 1 yellow for first player. Flip that to decide who gets to go. Then each player alternately selects 1. So you get to kind of pick your 3 of your 4 team. Then remove the last one back in the box. So at the end of the game, with the 10 things, you'll be playing as 8. There'll be 1 that nobody knows what it is. And then each player will have one hidden from each other. So until after you flip it over, then you'll know exactly at the beginning of the game what everybody has. Yeah, then you shuffle up your deck. You're going to lay out your location cards. So we're going to get all of these different location cards, which are double-sided. They don't mean anything for the double-sidedness. Like each one of those are the exact same. We got some mountains, we got a city, we got a bigger city or some more mountains. Crevice, some mountains, same crevice, mountains, bigger cities. The same things. You kind of design how you want to set them up, but you're going to have 6 of those. And then you're going to have 2 points cards. So one has 1 through 6, one has 7 through 12. And these are your score points. So as you score, you'll be moving your counters across the board to keep track of them. Now these are kind of neat too because they are double-sided. So you can either play long ways like this, or if it's easier for your players to keep track of, being one person each side of the table, you can have them go up and down. Which is really neat. Nice little extra little thing to the game. Otherwise, setting up the game. So each player will take their 4 leader cards, which will have like a gold back on them. And you're going to have them, your guild masters, your summoners, you have 4 on each side for each player. Have your 3 rule cards out. Let's just tell you your 3 actions you can do, so everyone can read them. Set your decks off to the side. So you're going to shuffle all your rest of your cards together to form your decks. Otherwise, yeah, pretty simple. Then, for personal steps, collect your guild, do all that. Collect all 36 elementals of your 4 guilds, shuffle them together, leave some room next to your draw pile. Draw 7 elementals. The player without the starting marker will get to play one of their cards face up in the middle of the table. So, getting to go second, they just start with one guy already on the table. Alright, so then we have gameplay. So each player with the start marker begins the game with 1 action. So you can do one of 3 things. Either you can play a card, activate, or draw and check. So I'm going to do this rather than just look at that. We're going to grab these cards here. So we have A, B, and C here. I think these do a pretty good job of explaining. So, what you can do is one of your 3 actions can be to play up to 3 elements from your hand. You don't have to play all 3, and you might not be able to. These elements must either all show the same symbol or the same number. So again, I can either play 3 fire cards or 3 with the number 5, or I could play 2 number 5s, or I could play a 5, 6, and a 7 of fire. Doesn't matter. So it's either all 3 elementals. Now you're shuffling between 4 different groups. So you might not have all 3 of the same number or all 3 of the same element. You might get lucky and have them. Awesome. You might choose to hey, I have 2 fire. I'm going to save my fire until maybe I get a 3rd one and keep drawing other cards. So play as elementals separate at adjacent locations are all to the same location. So when you have your location on the board, either they all have to be next to each other, and it's not necessarily if you play 1 card and then you play card 2 to the left of it, the 3rd card has to go to the left. It can go to the right of the 1st card. Doesn't matter. Or you play them all at the same location. So like in this example here, they showed Carl here played all 3 of them. He has 7 and 2 6s, but they're all air elementals. So you play them all in the same location. Eva's going to play that, so she plays a green plant card here, a orange or red fire card here, and then she has a yellow light card. She can play there or there. But you have to play them all in different locations. So it's kind of like, do you spread everything out, or do you protect one location very well? So that's our first thing. Our second option is to activate. So after you have some elements out, you want to do stuff. So discard 1 element card from your hand to a discard pile. This is, of course, going to help you get rid of cards out of your hand that maybe you can't use. Maybe you have a bunch of 4s and you don't need a bunch of 4s. Or maybe you have too many fire cards and you want to discard 1 down. I have 4 of them. I can only play 3 at a time, so let's discard 1 to use that. Activate up to 3 elementals, which either show all the same symbol or all the same number as the elemental discard. So again, where it gets a little bit tricky. It's not just activate any of them. Discard a fire, you can activate any fire ones. You discard a 5, you can activate any 5 of any element. So it makes it, what do you have the most out of, what can you get the most from, what can you do the most of. It says execute the ability of an activate elemental completely before you activate the next element. So if I discard this guy, I can activate any of my up to 3 of my fire guys, or up to 3 cards with 5. I have to choose one or the other. If I choose fire, I can only do fire guys. If I choose number 5, I can only do 5. I can't do a fire guy and then 2 other elements of 5 if my element was a different card. Then what you do is if you activate a fire one, then you look at your summoner. And it does, you do whatever his effect is. And if I activated 3 5s and one was also an air guy, then I would do what the air one says. So it's also going to make a difference. You have 4 different masters you have to kind of pay attention to. So it says, you must resolve all steps in the ability from top to bottom as much as you can. And you might not be able to do all of them. Maybe, like, for example, this one says, place 3 damage on the first enemy at this location. Obviously, you're going to want to do that. But it says, then place 1 damage on the ally directly behind him. If you don't have an ally, you don't have to do that, of course. Most abilities will place damage on the first enemy. That is the one closest to the location, so the one at the bottom of the pile. If the total damage on an enemy is equal or higher than its number, you destroy it. So, like, basically the number is also its health. This guy's 5 health, a 4 has, or a 6 has 6 health, a 7 has 7 health. So there's less guys with higher health. If the ability places more damage on an element that is needed, it is not carried to the next elemental. So yeah, so kind of showing off that. So it says, Abe choose option 2 with the water element. You place 2 damage on the air elemental right here. Since there's already 2 damage, the new total is now 4. He moves the water to the left into the other pile, or she places 1 damage on the shadow. So she places damage over there. And he said we guide the damage of the color that's inflicted, so you know who is inflicting it. So that's why they're not all black. It says your opponent does the next thing on their turn. Next, she activates her fire elemental, places 3 damage on the air elemental, and then puts 1 on her planet. So she put 3 there, 1 there. And that was enough to destroy the planet, so she gains it. Then next, lastly, she plays her light, which is her other 5. It says there are no enemies in her location, so the damage is lost, but then she can remove 1 damage from somebody else. So you might just choose to do that. To get as much as you can. Then the third action is the check and draw. You can only choose this action if you have less than 7 elementals in your hand. So you can't like win a bunch of things and then decide to like, oh, I just did this last turn and I'm still winning a bunch of areas. You have to play a couple of cards first. So you gain 1 Riftforce for each location where there's 1 of your elementals and no enemies present. So yeah, the more guys you defeat, the better you can do. But again, so like end of my turn, I played my action. Let's say I defeated 2 of their guys, and they have 3 areas open. My opponent's best course of action to do, if they can, be to try and play as many different elements or different numbers or however they want to play it onto those spots to block those back up. Otherwise, if they just place them, if they just do an activation and they can destroy my guys, that's their other option. But if there's no one across from them, it might be hard to destroy them. Otherwise, yeah, if they don't, then my next turn, if they didn't put anything like 3 spots, I already have less than 7 cards in my hand. Because I've discarded 1 to attack. I'm going to go ahead and do that and then draw 1 more card, but I'm going to gain 3 points for it. Yeah, then you draw cards, you have, draw opponent, you have elements in it. So, recommended, probably like your first turn, you're going to play 3 elements, most likely. So now you're down to 4 cards. And then your next turn, you'll probably activate some of them. So you'll probably be down to 3 cards. So then your third turn, you're basically either going to check and draw to get back up to your 7 cards. Or you can either attack another time, which brings you down to 2 cards. And then you're definitely almost going to want at clearing, or check and draw, sorry. Or on your third turn, you could play your last 3 cards and then use your last turn to do that. Even if you don't have anything to activate, you can always refill your hand. Alright, so it says the game ends as soon as you reach 12 Riftforce and the end game is triggered. Finish your action complete. If you started the game, your opponent still has one action. If your opponent started the game ends immediately. So you both get the same number of cards. In case of a tie, you both perform another action afterwards. Check whether there's still a tie. Tie remains repeats until the tie is broken. So yeah, very simple. On the back, it kind of goes through a little bit extra information on each guild. But that's what we have for the core set. So we'll have our different elements in that. So before we actually jump in and look at what cards are in this set, I want to look at the expansion. So we have Riftforce Beyond. So what does this add to the game? Just to see it. So what's going to add is just going to add 8 new guilds. Beast, Sand, Lava, Music, Magnet, Love, Star, and Acid. This is one reason why I recommend picking this up right away. So now instead of having 10 guilds, now you have 18. So now you have a lot more options and mix and matching to play with. It's just going to make it a little bit more interesting. Then it's also going to have stuff for solo mode and multiplayer mode. So it's 3 more locations, 2 more player order cards, some more damage tokens. We get another sheet of damage tokens because you have more players. And then for solo mode, we have some challenge cards and attack plans. So what are the basic differences? In team modes, you can play either 3 or 4 players. So with a 3-player game, 1 player plays against a team of 2 players, or with 4, you play 2-on-2. In solo mode, you just play by yourself as a trainer. It has a moddable difficulty. In team mode, instead of step 3, do the following. Align any of the 3 locations from the base game and the 3 gray locations from the new game. So now we're going to have 3 brand new locations. Like just Craggy Rock. Nothing extra special. I think they're all upside down. In there. And then we're also going to have team cards showing what team it is. If you're playing a 3 or 4 player game. All of the exact same thing on each one. I think it's supposed to be, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is 1 player, 2 player, and then this is the 3rd player that's by themselves versus them all being separate. But yeah, kind of interesting. So you get those extra cards in there. So then what you'll have a setup is, starts with 4 players. Toss a marker to determine which team starts. Place the player order your player count on the side face up corresponds to the seating positions. So if you're playing, whichever direction. And then set up your guild. Alright, so then it wants you to do is, for games 2, 3, or 4 players, shuffle together all 18 summoners from the base game and the expansion. Each player draws 1 random summoner and display a number of summoners with 6 plus the number of players. Ultimately select each one if you either have 4 summoners that are playing with a rival, individual 3 summoners if you're in a team. Return the unused summoners and then link to back to the game. So the only thing they did change is you don't discard 1 right off the bat. I would still do that anyhow, so I think that makes it a little bit more. I think the reason they didn't is because with 10 and you're only playing with 8, there's only going to be 2 that you're not going to know. With playing 18 and you're only playing with 6, 6 to 8, depending on how many you're playing. If you're playing a 3 or 4 player game, you're not going to know who all of them were anyhow. But still, it'd be interesting to discard some because you have less options. Like discard like 2 or something. Personal set, basically everything's the same except the 3rd player. If you're playing 3 players, the player not on a team draws 2 cards from their deck pile. Place the first one up in the middle of the table in the green area, the other one face up in the middle of the gray area. So, team, like if you're playing a 4 player game, each person gets to play something. Players 2, 3, and 4 all get to play them. Player 1 doesn't. If you're playing a 3 player game, it'll look the same way if like this was team 2 gets to play both of theirs. So just get some starting stuff. So what else changes in team mode? Each team shares 1 Riftforce track to keep track of their thing. Start marker, position where so you can take exactly 1 action. As a player not on the action team in a 3-player game, you perform a goal of 2 actions at positions 2 and 4. After action, move the start token to the new position of the next highlighted player. So instead of passing the first, second player token around, you move it down that little track so you keep track of which player is doing what. And you don't have to do that if you're able to keep track of that yourself, but it's kind of a helpful thing to have. Only when performing check and draw in the two areas, green and gray, become relevant. So playing cards, you can play any on either side of the green or gray, but when you're checking, you only check for the area in front of you. So if I'm sitting in front of the 3 gray, I only check to see if the gray is empty. If you're not on a team, you get to check all of them. So that way you're not gaining points for the entire board every time. Yeah, so very simple. And then activate, you can choose to activate elements with the same number. You can activate elements of your team member as well. So you're playing them on the full board. You're playing stuff on your entire team side. It doesn't matter whose was whose. You can talk to your team member about general strategy. These are conversations that must also be clearly audible to your opponent. It's forbidden to advise your team member during their actions and to share information about the elementals your hand or show them your member. So this is kind of a weird thing. It's a game where you're playing together, but you can talk about what you might want to do while looking at the table. And what a strategy might be, but then it says it is forbidden to advise your team member during their actions or to share information about the cards in your hand. I can maybe understand not sharing the information in your hand or playing with an open hand with them, but I don't get why you can't advise your team on what to do. It might be like, I can get for like an alpha game a reason why not to have someone be forcefully, but otherwise that doesn't make sense why you wouldn't be like, hey, I think we really need to take out that guy. Because that fire ability is going to kick, if he kicks it off, that could really hurt us or something, Interesting, though. As soon as a player not on a team in the 3-player game reaches 12, the game end is triggered. Finish the current round so the position force completes their action. Whoever has the most Riftforce wins. In case of a tie, keep playing games. So that's basically that. And then solo mode, I'm just going to go through this one really quick. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to choose 4 guild, take their elementals, you're going to play against the difficulty. You're going to choose a card that's 5, 6, or 7. They have star difficulties, which we'll get those at the end. Or you can have an and challenge on there. So you're going to set up the game like this. Your opponent is going to be a bot character, and they're going to have some elementals out. You're going to have a little card here that's going to have what abilities they do instead of their guild cards, and what position they play cards, and what cards activate. Otherwise, you're just trying to play against that. So you still only do one action. They ignore their summoners, and you play their cards. You defeat them, you gain points. So very simple. So like just showing here, it's saying they have this card flipped up. Flip the topmost card of the trainer's deck and puts it on the marked location. So they add a new card there. That's the card they just added. Then they get to activate a card with 6, and they do 6 abilities. So they activate one of these cards with a 6, and they do the 6 ability. And then they do a 5 if they have a 5, and then they do another 6 if they had another 6. So it says, since each bot can only be, there's no other bot number 6 represented on the board. Skips the last sequence. I know that's true. There are 2 6s on the board, so but yeah, then you gotta kind of pick which one of the computer game. So it's not fully automated. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's only picking from this spot. So whoever's in this spot, they're gonna play there, and then there's a 5 and a 6, so they're gonna activate those 2 abilities. There's no other 6 on that tile. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that works. Awesome. So cool. So that's basically that. So let's take a look at the cards in here. So we have in our fire elementals, these are some kind of interesting cards. So all the cards are gonna have the same artwork. So we're gonna have our 4 5s. So I'm not going to start showing up all of them because all have the exact same artwork. Our 3 6s and our 2 7s. So those are our fires. And then what's our fire guys do? So they say place 3 damage on the first enemy with dislocation. So they're going to be lots of damage dealers. And then place 1 damage on the ally directly behind this fire. So if these guys have a bunch of guys behind them go kind of fortify you, they're going to start taking damage, unfortunately. We have our air elementals. We have our 5, 6s, and 7s. Again, I'm not going to show all them, but we have like a big fat whirlwind guy. So air has move this air to any other location. Place 1 damage on each first enemy at the location and the adjacent locations. So this guy could potentially do 3 as well, depending on where you move him and what's available. So he could also do 3 with no extra, direct extra harm, I should say. Alright, up next we have the Earth Elemental. Again, we'll have the 5, 6s, and 7s. It says, when you play this Earth, place 1 damage on each enemy at this location. So just to do more or less depending on how many enemies. And then place 2 damage on the first enemy at this location. So when you play the Earth, he does an automatic damage, and then you can also activate him and do extra damage. We have our Water Elementals. Those guys look pretty cool. We say, place 2 damage on the first enemy at this location. Move this water to an adjacent location. Place 1 damage on the first enemy at the new location. So this again, it's going to do 3 damage, but kind of like the air, it gets to move around, but you get to do damage to 1 guy first, and then 2 move around a little bit more. So kind of a combination of the two between him and fire. Then we have lightning. That's neat. It's destroying a mountain. Says place 2 damage on any enemy at this location. If Thunderbolt destroys this enemy, there's Thunderbolt now. Repeat this ability once more. So it's a Thunderbolt class instead of. I think that's the only one that's odd. Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of neat. So if you can damage any guys, you have a lot more aim for it, and hopefully you can destroy somebody else. Up next we have Ice. Again, crystalline monster, some crystal hands. But that's not Ice. That is Shadow. There's Ice. Says if there is damage on the last enemy dislocation, place 4 damage on it. Otherwise, place 1 damage. So it normally does 1, but if it has more damage on there, you can do 4 to it. Should destroy most of them. Destroy all the 5s. Probably any of the 5s. Maybe the 6s, maybe the 7s. So like that would team up really well with some of these other ones. Like the last one you just saw, we could place any on there. Or the Earth, we could place 1 damage on each one. Like some of them, you can see where they're going to combo very well together. Which is why I think also they have you randomly pick them. Otherwise, or back and forth, otherwise you can see that. We have our Light, which is going to be an Archangel there. Place 2 damage on the first enemy dislocation. Remove 1 damage from 1 light or any ally. From this light or any ally. So that's kind of cool. We have Crystal. This is in pink. So it's place 4 damage on the first enemy dislocation. When Crystal is destroyed, your opponent gains +1 Riftforce. So there's a lot of damage, but it comes at that risk. If they destroy you, they gain extra damage. So having the light one with you to heal you wouldn't be a bad. For plant, cool viney creature, we have this little sprigging, little elf, wood elf, I guess, not sprigging. Place 2 damage on the first enemy in the adjacent location. Move this enemy to the location of this plant. So you get to hit a guy on left or right of you, but then you get to bring them to your spot, so then maybe your next guy can attack that one. And then the last one is Shadow. It says, move the Shadow to any other location. Place 1 damage on the first enemy location. If Shadow destroys this enemy, gain 1 Rift Force. So they gain extra bonuses for destroying them. So that was all stuff from the core set. So let's take a look at our enemies, our guilds from the expansion. So we're gonna start with the beasts. So we went from like straight elements to some non-elements, but still interesting stuff. More like groups, I guess. But it also means you kind of see where they could potentially even add more if they ever wanted to. Move this beast to an adjacent location. If there's a damage on this beast, place 3 damage on the first enemy at this location. Otherwise, place 2 damage on it. So that's kind of neat. Move, and he actually gets rewarded if you're already damaged. We have lava. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool looking art. It'd be neat if they had a different one for each one. But I kind of did it. I'm not really mad because really the number matters, not the picture. Place 2 damage on each of the first enemies at adjacent locations. Then place 1 damage on each lava, on this lava, and all allies in front of this lava. So yeah, if he gets put towards the end when you activate him, he's going to damage all your allies. If you can get him down first, then there's not as much of a big deal. So that's pretty cool. Alright, then we have love is an element, I guess. Big giant bubble. So we got this lady. When you play this love, remove all damage from 1 ally at this location. Place 2 damage on the first enemy at this location. So cool. Extra healing cards. Nice to have someone other than just the light cards that do that. Here we have a magnet. Okay, cool robot. Which says, place 2 damage on the last enemy at this location. Move this enemy and this magnet to an adjacent location. So you can put it on the last guy, then you can move them around, which is neat because if it's an empty space, now they're the first enemy. And then now you could play something else, or activate another guy that might be like, oh, hit the first guy, right? So it's a cool way to like manipulate guys out of the pile. So that's pretty cool. Up next we have Acid. What's a scorpion snake? That's creepy. So he's spitting acid. Place 3 damage on the first enemy at this location. Place 1 damage on the enemy second enemy's location. If this acid destroys an enemy, gain no Riftforce. Interesting. So you use this guy like weaken them, but hopefully don't destroy them. Then we have sand. Move the sand to any other location. Place 1 damage on each enemy at this location. Remove 1 damage from this sand. So it's a way to heal himself. That's cool. Alright, we have music. Like a banshee, almost. Playing the harp. Place 2 damage at the first enemy at this location. If the music destroys this enemy, play it on your side of the rift at an adjacent location. Oh, that's cool. We got a stealing effect. And then the last group is Star. Just still a neat artwork, but it's a like least creature looking one. You can see there's like an arm there. It's kind of like feet. I get it. But that's alright. They have placed 2 damage on the first enemy at this location. If you have less than 7 elements in your hand, draw 1 elemental. So nice, unless you had some other way. Now, there wasn't any cards in there. There's a couple that healed. A lot of moving around and then doing damage, or doing damage then moving, which is kind of neat. Lets you kind of like stack your deck or maybe move to an empty spot so you can just go ahead and be gaining it. There wasn't anything I noticed that lets you draw additional cards or discard cards from your opponent's hand, which both of them would have been very interesting abilities. So again, like I said, I could see, I don't think they probably will make another one. This came out in 2021, and it's now 2025. So if they were going to make one, I would imagine they would have released another set. 2020 and 2021, so yeah, if they went 4 years. But that'd be kind of a neat, even like fan thing to do, is make some extra elements. So again, you're really just creating the one summoner card. The other ones you can put any picture on there, create a new element. You know, um, you could have time as an element. Since you already have stuff like love, you could go like hate. Um, do some interesting stuff like that. I could see like discarding cards from an opponent's hand, drawing a card. Um, we only had the Magna. I think was the only one that moved one of your opponent's card, having something. We had one that took control, so you could have again maybe something else that lets you manipulate that stuff a little bit more. Or even they don't have anything where you place counters on guys. That could be an interesting idea too. Like maybe time would be like play a counter on them. And it could be like a counter with like a certain number on that at the end of the turn, like each turn takes it down. When it gets there, it destroys them regardless of their health, right? So then maybe that means, hey, now this guy he's living on borrowed time. He has like 2 turns or something, right? Before he goes away, like next your turn, and then at the end of your next turn, he goes away. Yeah, it could be some interesting stuff you could do with that. I could probably think of others, but I don't want to get into that too much. We want to look at this stuff for solo modes. Yeah, 18 different guilds. So even if you don't want to play the multiplayer, the 3-player or the 4-player, you don't want to play solo, I could say recommend picking up this expansion just for the extra guilds. They had some interesting, cool abilities. Plus, again, you get more options. You're playing 2 players, so you're playing 8 guilds every time. That's, twice. You can play 2 full games without having to the same guild for 16. You still have 2 guys left over. And you can always try other variants, maybe playing with 6 guys, or it's like getting rid of like a couple and then trying it. Yeah, be interesting. Alright, so I'm gonna look at the solo mode stuff. So we have 2 sets of cards. So our first one are our activation cards. These are just going to say Beyond on the back, just to keep them different from the Riftforce. But they're going to tell you where you're playing each card each turn, and which cards are activated. So you have like first spot 566, second spot or first spot 665. Kind of same idea. Each one, I'm just going to kind of cycle through these. Spot 3, spot 4. Some will activate each different number. They'll probably activate, you're probably not going to get too many double 7s. Just because you're not going to have double 7s out too often. But they did put 1 in there. Then the last 5 cards are going to be the check and draw. So if this comes up at the end of each pile, it'll have you do their check and draw so they get more cards. But just checking that location. So you get 1 of those for each spot. So what you're doing, you do solo mode, you make 5 little mini decks, you put 1 of these in each of those 5 decks. So within every 5 turns or so, they're going to check for these. Then what we have are their actual abilities they use, which have the numbers on the back. So you're going to pick 1 for each different number. So a 5, a 6, and a 7. But they each have a different star, which gives them a different difficulty. So you can always play 1 star first on each level and then try a little bit harder for each one. Or you could go like a 1 for 5 since there's more of them, a 2 for 6, a 3 for 7s. But yeah, first one says place 2 damage on the first enemy location, so fairly typical ability. 2 stars says place 2 damage on the last enemy location, bot destroys enemy, repeat this once. 3 stars is place 2 damage on the first enemy and 1 damage on the second enemy. And for the 4 difficulty, place 2 damage on the enemy most damage at this location. Again, there's an ability, like, right, we haven't seen on one of the other guys. That'd be a neat one. Just place 2 damage on whoever's already damaged the most. It can be anybody, anywhere. That'd be kind of neat. For the 6s, we have placed 3 damage on the last enemy. And that's just place 3 damage on the first enemy and move the enemy to the location of the spot. Place 3 damage on the first enemy and move this enemy to an adjacent location. And place 3 damage on the first enemy at this location. Or 7. Place 2 damage on each of the enemies in the first locations. Place 2 damage on each of the first enemy in the last location. Oh, first and last enemy, sorry. For 3 is place 3 damage on the first and 1 damage on each other enemy. Then for the 7, is place 5 on the last enemy at this location. And then for super hard difficulty, you can have add, which you can add this onto any of them if you'd like. It says move this bot to any other location and do everything else. Or remove 1 damage from any bot and do this. So yeah, very, very cool that we actually have that. And again, you can play that for solo and you're just trying to score 12 points to win. You can increase and change your difficulty however you'd like to do. But yeah, that's Riftforce and Riftforce Beyond. So very simple simple game to play. I don't know, it's very difficult. I don't know, it's hard to keep track of it when you play a card. You pick a fire card, then you look over at your fire summoner to see what your ability does. Yeah, there's probably some different strategies. Some guilds probably work better or worse with other guilds, especially when you add more of them in there. They're probably going to work even differently. So, and that can always be a case if you find out, like, you're playing a bunch of games and one guy that's always taking fire then also always takes ice because they're like, oh, those are really good. Well, I mean, obviously your way to block that would be if they take fire, then you take ice, then they can't. But maybe you don't really want ice, or you're not, or you don't want to have to play defense to the first player, right? So, like, they're picking and you're always picking reactive to them. You could just randomly select 8 of them, boom, 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 boom. Of course, that's also part of the thing when you start the first one. So they can do for the 3-4 player game. Just randomly drawing that one card because each player has one card they don't know. They don't know why they're picking the other ones right off the bat immediately. So that's also kind of an interesting thing as well. But yeah, so that's what we have for Riftforce. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have interesting ideas for some of the guilds, let me know. It'd be kind of cool to maybe make some new ones. See you guys later. Bye.